All right, Clint, good to see you. I got to ask you, I have been wondering why we don't, as Americans, get the exposure to these alternative remedies and alternatives that you have to hold, that you can bring to the table. Why don't we hear about them more?
Yeah, so really, Sean, the issue is the deck is really stacked in favor of big pharma, and the American public really saw it during COVID when, as you remember, there were so many valid natural solutions that were being discussed and even being offered by medical professionals in private, that if you went to make that public, there was an intense amount of scrutiny. People lost their licenses, they were prosecuted. It was crazy. And that leads into advertising. So big pharma controls a lot of media when it comes to advertising, and natural supplement solutions are barred from really discussing what they can actually do because they're not considered a drug through the FDA system. So essentially what happens is pharma has a monopoly, because even if you have something with clinical research that you can show the American public, it's right here, here's everything that's been tested with it, you can't talk about that unless it's officially a drug through the entire system. And if you don't have the $1 billion to do that, you can't talk about it.
Which seems silly, right? I mean, I think, it's funny. When I got COVID, my doctor said to me, here are like the 5 things that you should take. Vitamin C, there's a thing called Curacin. I had a little list, and I would show it to other people as they got diagnosed as well and say, hey, here's what my doctor told me. And he was like, all natural remedies. And yet it was like a one-off kind of, like, I felt like he was being sneaky. He's like, by the way, before you go, here's what you should know. Why would it? I mean, it seems absolutely ridiculous that if you have something that can help people, that's not illegal, it doesn't hurt them. I mean, taking copious amounts of vitamin C, unless you're probably taking a ton of it, isn't going to hurt you. Like,
exactly.
What is it? So is it just big pharma? Is it the medical community? Is it the government? Is it all of them in cahoots?
Yeah, it's really, I call it the unholy alliance, unholy trinity. And you have big food, big pharma, and the FDA. And they kind of all work simultaneously for the main purpose is profit. Huge amounts of profit. And again, it starts with a lot of the food that we eat. And when you look at the 2,000 preservatives and other ingredients that are illegal in other parts of the world that we have here and we buy every day, then it moves into, you get sick, you go and get a pill from your doctor, because the doctors are highly regulated too. They have to be careful about what they say and don't say about things that aren't a drug. And of course, it's all being supervised by the FDA. So again, it's built for profit. That's the problem. Is the system, I call it perverted, because it's not there to help. It's really there to make a profit. I mean, that's how it's geared to happen.
So first of all, you mentioned the advertising aspect of this. Explain that to me for a while, because I mean, when you watch television, it's literally like this drug, that drug. And by the way, it can cause 18 different things. But they advertise all the time that talk to your doctor about this, it'll cure that and cure that. What are the advertising regulations for something that doesn't go through the FDA but doesn't harm you, if it's all natural?
Well, one quick point I want to make is we're one of the only countries in the world that actually allows pharmaceutical advertising. When you think about it, a pharmaceutical is something that should be prescribed by your doctor. You should come in with an illness and they should say, hey, based on my years of experience, we're going to prescribe you this drug. Instead of it being advertised where you're walking in the door saying, hey, doc, I need this. That really shouldn't be how it works, but it is how it works here. Now, to your question about supplements, it's all about what you can say. And that's the problem is, yes, you can go on and create an advertisement for a supplement, but you really can't say what it does. You can't say that it's clinically proven to do anything. You can't actually talk about the function that would be considered a drug claim, even if you had the scientific research behind that. And that's the sad part.
So what, for example, like you go out and you get 10 Harvard studies or something like that.
Yeah.
You can't. Can you acknowledge them? Can you say Harvard looked at my drug or my cure and it says it's great?
Nope.
Can you guide people to it and say go look at this link?
Nope, because in the world of the FDA, if you did that, you are essentially making a drug claim. So you are now taking your natural supplement and calling it a drug. Therefore, you're making unsubstantiated drug claims. Even though it is clinically proven, you haven't gone through the drug approval process with the Food and Drug Administration. So that's just this huge hurdle that companies can't get around.
Okay, and it's how expensive is that hurdle? Let's talk brass tacks here. How
Yes.
expensive if you have a product and you say and also like the other thing I'm wondering is when you keep using the word natural. So
Mhm.
if it's a natural existing product, right? I.e., it doesn't do any harm. What is the whereas like an off-label use of a drug, right, which we're all starting to get familiar with,
Yeah.
can hurt you, can literally hurt you. If you take an off-label natural supplement, could they potentially hurt you? Or is it, I mean, that's what I think is fascinating. As far as I know, I mean, for these things that I read about, it sounds like if it naturally exists, the odds of it doing any harm to you seem rather low or non-existent.
You're totally right. And really, for most natural solutions, natural compounds, even, your body will get rid of what it doesn't need. So,
Right.
so running the risk of any sort of overdose or using too much, because you're supporting a natural function, whereas a drug is mimicking or taking the place of a function your body does, which is why you become dependent on it, which is why you need it usually for a lifetime. Because your body's so smart, it realizes that, hey, I'm taking a drug, it's doing the heavy lifting for me. I no longer have to do what this process is. And that's where people get into a lot of trouble. And we're seeing it right now with Ozempic. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the biggest off-label use currently is that's a diabetes drug that's being off-label used as a weight loss drug. It's not even approved for that. And it's
I
being
do.
used rapidly.
I do love the ads though, because there's always these shortages, and they're like,
Yep.
but when you read the ads, it goes, you may lose some weight, and it's like, what do you think? I mean, they know exactly what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if a natural supplement did that, the owners would probably end up in jail. I mean, it's that lopsided. It's crazy.
So how did a guy like you get into this? Like what made you look at natural supplements and what the government was doing and what the hurdles were?
Yeah. So for me, it's all based around canolidine. I told you in a previous conversation that by trade, I'm a medical scientist, but my field of study was really medical devices. I wasn't even in nutraceuticals or pharmaceuticals. That wasn't my path. And my mom got really sick at the end of 2015. She ended up having a terminal cancer diagnosis. And to a point where the only thing we could do as a family was keep her comfortable. And I'm sure a lot of people have been in that scenario where that's all you can do for your family member. And with all the treatments she was going through, because she was with chemo and radiation, the doctors prescribed her morphine. And I saw firsthand what a drug like that would do to somebody. And we lost our mom months before we actually lost her because she was no longer with us. She was a zombie. She was really dependent on this pill. And during that time, I took my scientific focus and started to try to figure out, is there something outside of morphine that would give her relief? And I went down the rabbit hole of CBD and THC and all that kind of stuff first. And then when I dug deeper is when this bombshell exploded in my face, which was canolidine, like a clinical, like just what we're talking about right here, clinical documentation of a natural alkaloid that had opioid-like relief qualities without side effects, without addiction, and nobody was talking about it.
Okay, so I don't. Okay, so you find canolidine. Why? I mean, you're a smart guy. Like, let's
Yeah.
just okay, okay. But why? I mean, but why isn't Big Pharma going? Hey, we found what Clint found.
So here's the thing: they have, but
What?
they're trying to
Wait, hold on. They knew this, and they didn't do. I mean, to me, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and that's that. And let's think about the time period too. This is 2016, 17. That's when we're entering the real gloomy days of our opioid epidemic, the start of it, when things got really bad with OxyContin. And we were looking for solutions, right? Well, the solution was there. They knew about it, and instead of talking about it, they filed a patent to synthesize it to turn it into a new drug in the future. So they knew what they had. They knew what canolidine is. They knew it could help. And their focus was, how do we make money from this? Even though people are literally dying on the streets with opioids, this is a way to fight that 100%. It already has, but yet they did nothing.
Okay, so why? I mean, I don't get it. Why? Like, is it because they couldn't make enough money, or they were making more with OxyContin? Like, what is it? I don't get that.
Yeah, because here's the thing about drug companies is they'll take most drugs, most pharmaceuticals originate from a natural compound, right? It starts natural, then they synthesize it, then they usually change the molecular structure, and then they patent it. And once they have patent rights, now they can protect it and make billions and billions and billions of dollars until it finally goes into generic use down the road. So to them, they're willing to let people suffer while they go through that synthesis process to then eventually make a bunch of money. So even though this is something that they could have, like I did, figure out how to extract, roll it out naturally, they're not going to do that because that's not their profit model. They'll make a lot more money from it later on down the road.
So literally people, and here's the thing that I find fascinating about what you just said. It's one thing to put that off in terms of the pain and suffering, but you alluded to this. We're going through this massive opioid addiction problem.
Yeah.
And they could help solve that, and yet they're choosing not to.
They are. And a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies also own nutraceutical companies. So they could have absolutely rolled this out quickly to the masses. I mean, the solution was there. The science is there. It's been studied now for 14 years. It's the only known compound to enhance your body's natural endorphin flow, which is how we naturally fight pain. It's there. The research is there. It's helping people right now as people are watching this. It's working on thousands and thousands of people. It could have made a huge impact back then, but it was just...
Well, it can make a huge impact now. I mean, yeah. I think about, look, I just think about all of the times when I've gone in to see a doctor, right? I mean, people who watch the show, my hips, my knees, my shoulder. I mean, I'm like a medical nightmare. And yet every time I go in, the first thing they do is say, all right, we're prescribing you this. And, and then it's okay. And then we'll figure out how to make it go away, i.e. physical therapy or some kind of surgery. But it's like the default is, here's the drug we're going to give you to mask the pain.
Exactly.
So walk me through, you say you discovered, then walk us through the evolution. You find this, yes. And then what?
So once I found it and I saw the initial reports that I read, which was done from Scripps Research down in Jupiter, Florida, they compared, and this isn't marketing, this is their medical research. They compared it to morphine without side effects or without risk of addiction. That was in 2011. So then I followed the evolution of science as it was happening with canolidine. And what later on was figured out is that canolidine attaches itself to a pain receptor that we now know as a scavenger receptor. So we used to think there was 4 receptors in the brain. Those are the 4 that things like OxyContin, morphine, these different painkillers will attach to and give you relief. Well, what they figured out was you have a 5th one that's robbing your body of your natural endorphins. Now, your endorphin flow is essentially your internal painkiller. In fact, the name itself, endorphin, means internal morphine. That's how they came up with the name. It's the way our body naturally kills pain. The problem is, as we age, our endorphin flow gets more and more robbed by the scavenger receptor. So if we're 8 years old and we fall off a bike, we can get right back up and we're fine the next day. At 18, at 28, 38, 48, and keep going as you get older, it gets worse and worse, where if you have an injury at 50, you might never recover from it, right? You're always in.
Is that a hint, Clint? Is that a hint? I need to be more careful.
No hints. Just saying. That's the reality for most Americans. I mean, I'm 42 years old. I face the same thing. And so what this does is allows that endorphin flow to get back to normal. So within 7 days, canolidine totally covers the scavenger receptor. And all of a sudden, your 4 main receptors are now receiving endorphins like they're supposed to. So it's the first ever pain relief supplement, essentially something you take on a daily basis to enhance your endorphin flow. And when you do that, it's like dialing down a stove, dialing down your pain dial. All of a sudden, it goes from something that's limiting you every day to you feel better because your body's dealing with it and you're not inebriated.
Do doctors know about this? Like, why wouldn't my doctor, I mean, it's funny. I know people who go through surgery. And these days, right, you probably know some of them too. You go through a surgery and they're very cognizant of how long they keep you on like an oxycodone or something because
Yes.
Okay, why wouldn't they just say now, hey, we know about canolidine? Where are doctors in this? Are they saying, hey, we now know about this product that Clint has brought forward?
So luckily the ones that now do know about it are gathering around it and starting to tell their patients about it. But again, Sean, remember, they have to be very careful because their licensing is all based around pharmaceuticals. So they're truly afraid of losing their licensing by telling people natural solutions that exist because they're kind of inside the system of pharmaceuticals.
So if you're not, I mean, look, can we bottom line this? If you're not listening to this right now, the odds of you, or I know you probably have many other outlets that, you talk to that I came across you, but like, you're not going to find out about this by talking to your doctor and saying, God, I'm a little concerned about addiction issues. Or I mean, God bless, I'm sorry about your mom and your situation,
Thank you.
but you know what I'm saying with respect to drugs. And I think that unfortunately you saw it firsthand. The trade-off sometimes is, yes, the pain went away, but now you're out of it, right? That's why they always tell you can't drive. It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you take canolidine, it's not affecting your mental state.
No. In fact, it actually increases your well-being. So if you've ever had like a runner's high, that's like when you go out and you do activity, all of a sudden you feel like you catch a second wind, or I call it the Superman effect. All of a sudden you feel great. That's your endorphin flow. So you don't feel high, or you don't feel weird, or you feel focused and a great sense of well-being. That's what it does for you.
Just the thing that's so fascinating to me is that we have an answer out there. It's the opposite of what's going on. And I said this a while ago, but my wife gets a kick out of the fact that I'm like getting all my medical advice now from Instagram. But I feel like on social media, it'll say these dyes, you mentioned this a moment ago, these dyes are banned in other countries. These preservatives aren't allowed. All of this EMF radiation coming out of your Bluetooth stuff is causing, and yet no one from the government is either helping you understand that. I mean, this is the point that I make to her, is that, okay, I may not get this, but I'm not getting it from my doctor and the FDA and the CDC and all these people. No one from the government, the NIH, is telling me the bad thing. It's until I stumble upon Clint and hear about canolidine.
You're totally right. And luckily, I've been able to find outlets like yourself that are reporting newsworthy things that need to be discussed, because most of your mainstream media, they're still controlled heavily by pharma. So it's my opinion that this should have been on every major news network all across the country when this was discovered. I mean,
it's sort of like this gets back to so many things that are happening in the government these days, which is why isn't somebody, okay, so let's be clear. Doesn't have a mental effect, right? You could still drive a car or do whatever. It's probably a heck of a lot cheaper. It doesn't have addictive qualities to it. I mean, like, it's like, what is going on that is causing people not to highlight this? And you do wonder about the collusion that's happening between all the aforementioned, big pharma, government, big food.
Yep. Yeah. And really what I've come to believe is it's an entire system. So what happens is, when you look at the Food and Drug Administration, you look at the people that work inside of that organization, a lot of them will retire onto major pharma boards, making a ton of money.
I watched this op-ed. This documentary, or it's like a fake documentary about the drug industry the other day. And I was going to ask you about that. These guys all get, like, they leave the CDC or the NIH, or whatever. And where do they go?
To pharma. That's where they go. I mean, it happened in front of us with OxyContin.
Yes.
When the person that approved that label, that was the craziest approval ever, basically, saying it's non-addictive, he went and he took a board seat with Purdue, making $500,000 a year.
You cannot make this up.
That's exactly how it works. It's crazy.
All right, Clint, tell me about your product, because I've tried it.
Yeah.
I actually tried both, and I did the drops, right? But
Yes.
this I have, and again, if some people know from some of the other products that I talk about on the show, the shoes that I wear, etc. But my knees have been killing me. I've been going to physical therapy. I took this rub that you guys have
Yeah.
with, and honest to God, it usually hurts me when I go to sleep. The muscle pains are unbelievable. And previously, my doctor had prescribed something to me, and I thought, all right, I want to try the rub on the knee. I slept like a baby. Like, I mean, it was like I couldn't believe. Normally, I wake up and it aches, and I've got to stretch it out or whatever. I so walk me through what you guys offer to relieve the pain.
Yeah. So basically what I did was once I got through my research on canola, how to extract it, how to create it, I went out and sought the best lab to produce it. So that was my because I'm a scientist. I'm not a marketer, right? So my thing was to find a brand that I could trust to roll this out to the public. And what I found was GDR Labs. So GDR Labs is located right where I am in Atlanta. It's about 15 minutes from my house. And what I love about their production facility is it's 100% American made. And that's something that's super, super important to me because I can walk through, I can see that they're following the extraction procedures. It's all done here from A to Z. The ingredients are done here. The testing's done here. And it's shipped out right from that facility because there's so many facilities, especially ones I've toured, that have multiple locations or overseas. You don't really know about the quality assurances. Right. And this is a product that is drug-free certified. It's GMP certified. It's given to professional athletes because of that ability. It's second to none as far as its production ability. So GDR is who produces it.
I love the fact that it's all in the United States because I got a kick out of COVID. They send us a disease, and then our virus, and then we end up buying more and more of our pharmaceutical and our PPE from the same people. I mean, I'm like, what are we doing that we're relying on them? And so the idea that GDR Labs is here in Georgia, it's all made in the United States, I think means a lot. I know that you guys have a special offer for us because we're talking about this today. Why don't you walk us through what we can do?
Sure. So GDR set up a private link, and it's tricano.com/Sean. And what they did is, it's easy to remember. And they slashed the price by $91. So it's essentially $1 a day, $29 per bottle for a very limited time. And the reason for that is we want to get the word out. We want people to try it.
I mean, that's less than the copay for probably a prescription.
Exactly. There's no reason not to try it. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee with it. And all I ask is we're really trying hard to get the word about Canoladine out. GDR Labs is the only company in the world that makes it. You can't find Canoladine anywhere else. They are exclusively the one that makes it. And we just want people talking about it. So if you're in pain or know someone who is in pain, please just tell them about what's out there, because you're right. There are options. And as we start talking about more as Americans, we're going to start to spread the word of things like this that exist.
Well, I can tell you right now, as someone who's used it I could not believe, I thought maybe I'll get some relief. I've tried some CBD products in the past and some prescription drugs. This was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, boom. And I mean, to the point where I literally had gone to the doctor saying, I can't sleep at night because of the pain in the knee. I have a torn meniscus. And he was like, of course you got to go to PT. Here's a drug to get you through the night. Yeah. I don't like the prescription drugs for a lot of reasons. So when I tried this and I slept through the night, I was like, oh my goodness. So again, the link is tricano.com/Sean, right?
Yes. And one thing I want to add too is make sure that when you use it, it's a daily use product. So don't take it just when you're in pain. You can use the rub when you're in pain, but for the sublingual, use it every single day. Like use it, just take it like you take vitamin C. It's a supplement, just like anything else. It builds in your system and just, it keeps your endorphin flow firing.
Well, that's the other thing is that I got to make sure I keep taking it when it goes away, because I've noticed that it's subsided and I've got to keep taking the drops every day as well as the rub. So I take the rub at night, the drops in the morning, and I'll be good to go. Clint, this has been awesome. I love the light that you have shed on this problem and the alternative that you've given us that our government and Big Pharma is not sharing with us. So thank you for doing that.
You got it. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet, guys. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.